Oh, Sunday night. Here we are recapping week one. And it was a pretty lackluster week one until the late games, saving the day. Why don't you guys guess in PPR the 5 highest scorers, all positions?
Tyreek Hill.
Tua Tagovailoa.
That's tied for number 2. He's probably decimal points ahead of the other guy. So we'll give him number 2.
Eckler.
Nope.
McCaffrey.
Nope.
No.
McCaffrey's teammate.
Jalen Warren.
Oh, Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk, number 3. And another wide receiver. A former wide receiver quarterback combo that now are on different teams, but both had big games in the 4:00 window.
Why am I blanking on it? Oh,
Jordan Love and Devontae Adams.
Jacoby Myers and Mac Jones.
How many points did Mac have?
29 points. He is QB2
on the waiver wire in most leagues.
How about it? All right, welcome everybody. Sunday night, we try to recap as much as we can. It's going to be a long show. Put your seatbelt on. Adam, Dave, and Heath. Let's start with our biggest winner. Give me one. Biggest winner, Heath.
No, gosh darn it, Adam. You told me to send you in the 3 winners. I thought we were going to do an intro thing. You were going to ask me a question.
Maybe a theme song, Heath?
Yes. I'd already just completely forgotten about the guys that I sent you as winners. My biggest winner, it has to be Kenny G, Kenneth Gainwell. There were some beat writer training camp battles going on with the reports of the Eagles backfield and who was going to lead and who was getting the first team snaps, and it was all Kenny Gainwell. Complete and utter domination. I believe last 1 carry each for DeAndre Swift and Boston Scott. They both got 3 yards on those carries. They threw it to DeAndre Swift twice. One time he completely whiffed and dropped the pass. The other time he caught it and gained 0 yards.
And he had more catches somehow than Dallas Goedert, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But Gainwell, holy cow, 14 carries, 4 catches, and he gets Minnesota next week. He is 54% rostered. Is Kenny Gainwell, whatever the heck his name is he the number 1 waiver wire priority? Because there are some other ones, obviously, with Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, Gus Edwards. We'll talk about Dobbins, unfortunately. Who's the number 1 waiver wire priority?
We had a very sad Jamie when we were watching games this afternoon because of Dobbins.
Until the start of the week started playing, I would presume.
Yeah, and then once
there was some
the week got going, he started to perk up a little. But he was sad about Dobbins. He was down.
Who's the number 1 waiver wire priority?
It's Gainwell for me, and I think you gotta make a big move. One of the best offenses in the NFL, and of all the splits that we saw this week, this one wasn't close.
Yeah.
Are you worried that it could end up being a mirage?
Oh, it could be, but I don't know what better indicator you're going to take a shot at on what offense.
Because I think they want to try and tailor how they use their running backs based on the opponents that they have. Now, in saying that, I would have told you before the game that DeAndre Swift was the best opponent that they could have gone with against the Patriots, and they decided that they felt best with Gainwell in the backfield. Did he do well enough in this game to warrant another week where the Eagles don't need Rashad Penny when they're playing on a short week?
The other thing to consider is, look, we're just talking about picking someone up on the waiver wire. We're not talking about calling him a must start. This wasn't the best offense for running backs. Now, they did throw to him a lot today. He had 4 catches, but they steal. Hurts steals a lot of touchdowns. And Miles Sanders was basically a workhorse last year, and he was just outside the top 20 per game. But in terms of getting someone on your roster, Kenneth Gainwell getting pretty much all of the running back touches is very exciting. Dave, who's your biggest winner?
First of all, did my connection just die?
I think maybe a little bit. Yeah, but you're back. Who's your biggest winner other than your wife?
Let's just make it easy and say Brandon Ayuk is someone you don't have to ask questions about for fantasy for the foreseeable future.
I'm only pushback I'm going to give it all, and I wish I would have. I moved them closer this week than I had them in my draft rankings, but I'd mentioned before that Jacob Gibbs had talked about how great Ayuk is at earning targets when they play teams that play a lot of man. And Dave, I asked you earlier this week, does Pittsburgh play a lot of man or a lot of zone? Most teams, I think 70% of teams play a lot more zone than they do man.
Yep.
Pittsburgh was one of those man-heavy teams
playing early, and it killed them. It absolutely crushed them.
So I don't know if they go back to playing a zone team next week that this performance has any impact on his target share.
I don't know. I think he's going to have built-in upside that fantasy managers are going to want to put in their lineup no matter who they play. And it's the Rams next week. Rams surprised. Their defense was definitely surprising in this game, in their game against Seattle.
Man, they whooped Seattle. That was the biggest surprise.
They really did. In the second half, Seattle had no shot.
The biggest losers, Dave, give me one big loser.
The biggest loser that I'm coming up with, first and foremost, is Drake London, who not only had no catches, but one target, and it's in this very familiar looking Falcons offense that only threw the ball 18 times. How many more games are we going to have like this where Ritter doesn't have a lot of pass attempts? Now I believe he had a catch called back by a penalty, but that's not of any consolation to anybody. This is a mess, and I think Drake London kind of takes Ayuk's place on the, do I start him? How do I feel about starting him? Could he be any good? Could he be a bust? I am particularly nervous about Drake London.
All right. Well, we saw Green Bay put up a big number today. The next 3 games for Drake London and Desmond Ridder are Green Bay, Detroit, and Jacksonville. So you've crossed your fingers, hope that they actually have to throw a little bit more. But bad. Drake London, T. Higgins, and Dallas Goedert combined for 0. Is that wait? Yeah, 0 yards, right? 0 yards for those 3 guys combined. London.
Yes, they had as many yards as Dave Richard, Heath Cummings, and Adam Azer.
Heath, who's your biggest loser?
I really wanted to keep this positive and just talk about all the good performances this week, but I'll say Christian Kirk. It was a disaster. Zay Jones way more involved than Kirk was. I look dumb on that one, and maybe it could, like, again, everything that we're talking about is 1 week, and week 2 could look completely different. And there's gonna be a lot of things that are like that, but this felt really bad.
42 of 69 snaps for Christian Kirk.
Not even a full-time player.
Ridley played 56. Where's Zay Jones on here? Oh, he played even more than Ridley, 61 snaps.
What I will say, and we'll talk about Jacksonville plenty later, like one of my winners was Trevor Lawrence because Calvin Ridley was just like so good. I watched a lot of that game. I didn't think Lawrence played particularly well or looked very comfortable. And so I wonder if maybe that could change, that Kirk could get on the field more, but he didn't have a whole lot of success outside of throwing to Ridley.
All right. So big winners, Kenneth Gainwell, Brandon Ayuk. Big losers, Drake London, Christian Kirk. We have many more winners and losers to talk about. We have injuries to talk about. Michael Pittman was a winner. Ken Walker, Zay Flowers. Wow. I am so regretful that I didn't draft any Zay Flowers. That guy is electric. And let's go through.
Can't say I feel the same.
Yeah, well, good for you. Well, no, because you drafted him, not because you
right. Because I drafted him.
We've got plenty of programming for you. Beyond the Box Score tomorrow, looking like 11:30 a.m. Eastern if you want to watch it live, and it'll be published shortly thereafter, maybe more like 1:30. And we have a stream Monday night. Join us for our 7:30 p.m. stream before Monday Night Football to answer some waiver wire questions. And if you have any last-minute lineup advice for the one game, which a lot of people do, actually, we'll be there, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. All right, the big news, part 1. There's a lot of big news today.
Yeah.
Let me just kind of run through some of the injuries we'll talk about. We're going to focus on Dobbins now, but Deontay Johnson left. Anthony Richardson appears fine. He left just short of the goal line in the last minute of the game. Mike Williams came back. He was evaluated for concussion. Aaron Jones didn't seem too serious, but he left in the fourth quarter of a blowout with a hamstring. Update on Cooper Kupp. Update on Jonathan Taylor. Evan Hull. All right. Yeah. Evan Hull does not belong in the same group as Kupp and Taylor, but he did get injured. Austin Eckler's one that we have to check. He didn't play in the last 4 minutes of the game. A lot of carries for Josh Kelly. He might be the number 1 waiver wire option if there's any absence for Eckler. In fact, I'd say he probably would be if there's any absence for Eckler. J.K. Dobbins tore his Achilles, and it sucks. And this guy, man, just being robbed of a great career, all these injuries. But let's look at waiver wire here. Gus Edwards, I don't think he had a carry, maybe 1 before the injury, but he then had a role. He had 8 carries after. There's Justice Hill,
who was the clear, it seemed to me, clear goal line back, clear inside the 5 back.
Who's this?
Justice Hill. He was in there for at least 4 plays, I think, inside the 5.
I've got the numbers. Give me 1 second. He played 3 of 3 snaps inside the 10 after the Dobbins injury, 6 of 7 on 3rd and 4th down. Someone told me that he was going to be a sleeper this year. Kind of didn't believe him because I thought J.K. Dobbins would be really good. Now Justice Hill is going to get an opportunity after the injury. It was really close to 50-50. Justice Hill, 52% of the snaps. And then again, 6 of 7 snaps on 3rd and 4th down, all 3 of their snaps inside the 10.
So do you guys want to pick up Justice Hill? What's your interest level there? That he's never had more than 10 carries in a game.
He also averaged less than 2 yards a carry in this game. He feels like fool's gold.
Yeah, I would assume that it's Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette. And Kareem, will you now play for what we were going to offer you? And if no, we'll sign Leonard Fournette.
What does this mean for all of the other Ravens? I mean, we have seen this story before. We've seen them go with the retreads of Latavius Murray and Devontae Freeman. And I feel like it's really...
If somebody seizes 15 touches in that backfield, then we're going to end up starting them as a flex.
I'm sorry. What does it mean for Lamar Jackson and co, if anything?
I think if Andrews is back, he can be fine.
All right. We got more big news a little bit later. Let's do some buy or sell. Wait. So I'm sorry. Let's go back to that because it is the big storyline here. I fooled Schaefer there. Put up the new lower third. Sorry. Hill is a top priority over Edwards.
I would go Hill over Edwards.
I don't feel good about either one, to be honest with you.
Kyron Williams or Ravens running back?
Williams.
I guess Williams. That's very much in pencil.
For me, Gainwell's in a different category than all these other guys.
Gosh, such a different stratosphere. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What about Puka Nacua?
If I don't need a running back desperately, then yes, Nacua would be ahead of those guys too, except Gainwell. Maybe even ahead of Gainwell.
I'd go Gainwell, Puka, Hill, Kelly for now, but let's see.
Okay.
Puka was impressive, but I just think the Rams overall were very, very impressive.
Anyone else we're forgetting here? Waiver wire wise?
I mean, we'll get questions about Tutu Atwell,
right,
who had also a very good game. Other names that we're forgetting about. I don't know what the rostership is on Nico Collins. If Jacoby Myers is okay, I'm pretty sure we'll get some questions on him.
Nico's 72%.
Okay. Hayden Hurst, because he had a really great game for a tight end.
What's Roschon at?
Yeah, but that was kind of a garbage time touchdown.
73%.
Yeah, he was playing earlier though, and he had 6 catches too.
He did. What is Sean Tucker at?
He had 4 catches. Roschon Johnson had 4 of his 6 catches after it was 38-14.
Right. I think that was a little garbage time.
But he looked great, didn't he? I mean, Sean Tucker's only 11% rostered.
Okay. So Tucker's a deep stash.
I'll give you a name, shallower, but if I have any quarterback concerns, I mean, should we start buying into Brock Purdy? He's good. I think he's good. And he's very smart. Makes good decisions.
Yeah.
Seems to know what he's doing out there.
I mean, what's Jordan Love's percentage? It's got to be higher than Purdy. Maybe.
Jordan Love. No, it's not. It's lower. Jordan Love's 54%.
I'd go in that direction first because he's putting up numbers and he'll eventually get Christian Watson back.
Okay.
Yeah, I still don't really buy Purdy. I'm sorry. And if you're a Purdy fan, you have every right to laugh at us and be happy right now, but I just don't really buy it.
Romeo Doubs, 67% rostered. So that's
nice touchdowns.
How many snaps did he play, Dave? Romeo Doubs?
I happen to have it in front of me. You're gonna have to give me a second.
I'm curious to know. While you do that,
played.
Got it.
There's 29 of 60 snaps. And remember, he was on a snap count because of his hamstring.
Buy or sell time. Here we go. Buy or sell. Tyler Algier with his 15 carries compared to 10 for Bijan and 2 rushing touchdowns and the goal line work for Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier will prevent Bijan Robinson from being a fantasy superstar.
Sell.
He really shouldn't. It's just like, and like Bijan was obviously great today. 6 catches. What do you have? 19 fantasy points. So he didn't prevent him from it today. But I mean, they got freaking Kyle Pitts and Drake London combining for 2 catches for 44 yards. I don't know why I would trust that he's not going to give Algier 15 carries and Bijan 10 carries all season long. I don't think there's any reason to ascribe any sort of sensibility to the way this goes. And they might still win too.
They won. Yeah.
Like his priorities are not our priorities.
Buy or sell. Kyron Williams is the best Rams running back for fantasy purposes.
Buy.
I struggle because I don't think he's a particularly talented 3-down type of a running back. I think he's better in passing down situations. I know he scored a couple of short yardage touchdowns. Everybody's excited about that. Clearly it's going to be a mess with that backfield, and they're not going to be. I'd be surprised if the Rams are this good every week.
I am going to I'm doing a look up now, so Dave's going to have to answer the next one or two, because how many, like, who was the last guy that had 20 plus carries for fewer than 30 yards?
Got to look up Zeke against Tennessee. I don't know if he got that.
Cam Akers had 22 carries for 29 yards today.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So you're thinking maybe the coaching staff will see that and say, forget about this. Let's just go with Kyron Williams.
Well, they've done that once or twice in Akers' career already.
I know. So, and they eventually come back to him. How many of those carries were late? Maybe I'm not making.
No, early in the game, he was out before he scored his 2 touchdowns before Akers scored.
Williams, yeah. Oh, I know that. I'm trying to think about, like, is Cam Akers getting just a bunch of carries and he doesn't really care what he does with them? They're just trying to kill the clock. I don't know. I can't say if that's exactly.
Look, it was bad. Okay, all right, let's move on. Anthony Richardson is a must-start quarterback. Buy or sell?
Oh, 100% buy.
He's at Houston next week. Buy it. Much better passer than he's ever looked in his life.
Houston, by the way,
and he still missed a bunch of throws.
The team that allowed the fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks last year and just held Lamar Jackson to a pretty.
But Adam, I want to talk about this for a second, because even I was a little bit wrong here, and that's what I was going to talk about with the Michael Pittman winner thing. I was so impressed in one regard and a little bit disappointed in the other at the way he handled the pocket. And he took probably a sack or 2 he shouldn't have, and they didn't protect him necessarily great. But like, we see Justin Fields, and I'll pick on him for a second. He drops back, and 1 guy's not open, 2 guys not open, and where's the running lane? And Richardson was just firing the ball. He did not scramble as much as I would like for him to for fantasy purposes. But I think he looked better and more comfortable playing quarterback than Justin Fields or Bryce Young or CJ Stroud today.
Justin Fields got to stop taking sacks. It's killing him. Yeah, Richardson, look, I think we all know well, what's at stake with me and Richardson. The Michael Pittman 39-yard touchdown on the screen was a tough pill to swallow for me. I could deal with him scoring a rushing touchdown. But all right, he gets 23 fantasy points, 22.9 fantasy points in his debut, started in only 21% of leagues. All right, last one. Buy or sell. Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson are on bust alert. Jackson scored 6.6 fantasy points. Justin Fields scored 16.5 fantasy points against Green Bay.
No.
Sell the hell out of that. And if anybody in your league is nervous after 1 week about either guy, and you want to upgrade your quarterback situation, now's the time to do it.
Why was Joe Burrow not in this one?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's fine. Are you putting him on bust alert?
He's just every bit as close, I think, right on the exact same line as Fields and Jackson.
I mean, that was a really ugly. The weather was, man, he was terrible. The Browns secondary was great. That was one of the games I had on. Guys were not really open. Higgins had 8 targets, didn't catch one of them, covered very well downfield. But the rain, I think, affected both quarterbacks. It was bad. And maybe Burrow was rusty. Maybe he was playing hurt. But
that's one I didn't see very much at all. I have no comment.
They were all over him.
Yeah,
all over him in that game. The offensive line could not.
The Bengals offensive line was doing a bad job of protecting him. It doesn't sound like them.
You want another hot take, since I give those out too regularly now?
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson can go back to being Deshaun Watson, the Browns are a true contender. Would you agree with that? Because their defense looks great today. And Chubb is just, he's Chubb. He's freaking great. How many sacks? Burrow only got sacked twice, but man, I feel
did either of you have a feeling about Deshaun Watson being feeling better about he is going to be that guy, or feeling worse about he is going to?
No, yes, a little bit worse about it.
A little bit
worse. A lot of terrible throws.
Yeah,
I only saw and this was probably some bias. The only drive I really saw was his last drive of the first half, and it sounds like it was his best. He threw a couple dimes and then ran in the touchdown, but he was just terrible the rest of the day.
I'll tell you, man, the interception he threw, I don't know what that was. So he's not back.
Terrible.
But the weather was really bad. All right, we'll take a break here. When we come back, we will get to some more news, talk about Deontay Johnson and more winners and losers, and then we'll recap every game for you. We'll be right back. The big news, part two. Deontay Johnson left in the third quarter, and also Cameron Hayward left in the first half. It was a terrible day for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get Cleveland next week. If Deontay Johnson misses some time, is there any Steeler you'd want to pick up?
I'm going to puke in my mouth.
How excited would you be about 11 PPR points?
It's Allen Robinson.
That's Allen Robinson.
Okay.
Is Freiermuth okay? I know that he left. Did he come back?
He came back and scored a touchdown after he left.
Okay, good.
I thought that was before.
Or did he leave again?
He
may have left more than once.
I think he gets a shot to break out without Deontay there. If Deontay misses time, it looked like a terrible injury. He was ruled out immediately. He was clutching his hamstring, grabbing it like he was grabbing like a part of a pillow on a couch. It was not good looking. It didn't look good.
Not much was for the Steelers today. Okay. Mike Williams was evaluated for a concussion, but he returned. Greg Dulcich left, I think, in the first half with a leg injury. Aaron Jones says it's not so bad. Just saw an update there, his hamstring injury, but we'll have to check on that. They are at Atlanta next week. AJ Dillon, man, geez, be better.
They did not have a meaningful offensive snap after that, did they?
No,
it was a blowout.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, Jaden Reed, Green Bay rookie receiver, he left with cramps. He came back in. Jacoby Myers left with a scary concussion late in that game. So they have the Dolphins, and Myers had a huge game. He was the number 3 wide receiver behind Hill and Ayuk. Tyler Lockett was evaluated for a concussion, but he came back. I mean, I think the biggest egg today was the Seahawks. My gosh, they barely had the ball, which is not new for the Seahawks, but they were terrible.
12 net yards in the second half.
Wow.
Well, how many yards did the Steelers have for the whole game? Or did they finally have one drive where
13.
What?
13. No, I don't know. It was bad. Sorry, let me just get through this. Cooper Kupp on IR. I'm sure you all probably knew that, but we haven't said it on the show. An update on Kyler Murray from our Jonathan Jones. Barring any setbacks, the hope is in Arizona is that Murray can return around or by mid-season, perhaps as early as late October. Jonathan Taylor is expected to be ready for week 5.
That's a winner.
Yeah, that's good.
That is a fantasy winner from week 1.
We'll get to that in a minute, Dave. I know he's one of your winners. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch, and Evan Hull left in the second half. A lot of touches for Deion Jackson. Didn't really do much with it.
He fumbled twice and got benched for Jake Flash Funk.
All right, let's go to the winners. 3 from each of you. Heath, you've got Michael Pittman. Oh, I should have queued up the music. Ken Walker and Kenneth Gainwell. We already talked about Gainwell, so let's talk about Pittman.
Yeah, I don't think that the Colts pass offense is going to be as nerfed as I'd originally anticipated. I think there will still be a relatively normal number of pass attempts, and Pittman absolutely dominated targets. I think he can be a boom bust number 3 wide receiver, which is a lot higher than where I was drafting him to be.
Okay, Ken Walker. Look, the stats not great, but he dominated the touches, and that's what we wanted to see.
Clear domination, and the few touches that Sharps got, he didn't do anything with. So I think a few more weeks at least for Ken Walker in this role. And a lot of the rookies didn't have as big a role in week 1 as what we're projecting for them later in the year. So I wouldn't be dropping Zach Charbonnet either, but it's a good start for Ken Walker. I would like to get more of an explanation on why
Tank Bigsby wasn't ruled to basically have stopped playing. You know,
I would like to know.
That play was ridiculous.
How about the patience from Doug Peterson? Because Tank Bigsby had already blown one interception where the ball hit him right in two hands, and he just gave it to the defense, Kadarius Toney style.
Yeah.
And then he picks up a fumble and just stands there while somebody takes it from him. And then he gets to come in and score a touchdown later. That's a lot of patience with a young guy.
Your other winner was Kenneth Gainwell. We already talked about him. Dave, your winners are Brandon Ayuk, Zay Flowers, who was started in only 30% of leagues, had 9 catches for 78 yards on 10 targets, and Jonathan Taylor. Let's talk about Zay Flowers at Cincinnati next week. No Mark Andrews here. So, you know, how much does that factor in your rest of season evaluation for Flowers off to an awesome start?
We are now looking at a Ravens offense that doesn't have a great run game. And with that being the case, I think we're going to continue to see Lamar throw. I think they manufactured targets for Zay Flowers, and he did a good job with them. Not a great receiving average. If you told me he was going to get as many catches as he had, I would have told you he would have had triple digits. But those games will come. I think he's clearly their most explosive receiver and the guy that'll lead them in targets this year. I buy fully into him. Look for him now as a flex play, a number 3 wide receiver. Hopefully he builds on it and becomes a number 2 wide receiver for fantasy managers.
So if we were playing buy, sell, hold, it would be a buy or a hold?
He's a buy. I mean, I don't know who's selling him. That's part of the problem. But maybe what you're hoping for is someone has him on their team and he's on their bench and they're loaded at wide receiver, and you've got Drake London or Tyler Lockett or whoever stunk today, and you want to get a boost. Maybe he won't cost you an arm and a leg because he's a bench receiver for somebody else.
And now Jonathan Taylor, things looking better for him with the week 5 return seeming likely. So he's a winner for you.
I wonder what the Colts are thinking, because Deion Jackson fumbled twice and he wasn't particularly effective when he played. We don't know how serious the whole injury is. Not that he was setting the world on fire. Do they try and get Taylor to agree to a contract extension or something to make him happy? Or do they just come to an agreement that they say, all right, we won't tag you, or we'll give you an extra couple $1 million. When you pass your physical and before week 5, you'll play for us instead of us trading you to another team. And then he comes back and he ends up being good. So I wonder if this is the time. I wasn't even sure if there would be a time where we would try and acquire Jonathan Taylor, but I wonder if now's the time to do it. People who have him, of course, they're going to say, well, he's coming back in a few weeks. I think that's probably the case. Maybe you make a run for Taylor if you've got a couple of good bench players after week 1. And the team that Jonathan Taylor lost in week 1.
My hot take is that the Colts would have won if Jonathan Taylor played today.
They gave him a real battle. And remember that their defense a couple years ago, their run defense with Shaq Leonard was really good. Pretty good.
I don't know if that's going to come back, but I think you've got a good case to be made there, Heath. A couple of turnovers from the run game. Run game really couldn't get anything going.
All right, well, let's go to our bonus winner. Bonus winner. I know you wanted another one, Dave. I'll give it to you. Bonus winner, Romeo Doubs, 67% rostered, 6% started, 5 targets, limited snaps, but he caught 2 touchdowns.
And when he does get that snap rate up, he will play every down, and he might lead this team in targets this year.
Well, he's got a head start, that's for sure. All right, losers. But you know what, though, Dave? Like, that's what a lot of people were saying. You know, he's going to end up a great value pick.
Sure.
Losers. Oh, my God.
Big night from Micah Parsons tonight. I need a big night for Micah Parsons.
A kick, a field goal blocked in return for a touchdown. Unbelievable. Drake London is a Dave loser.
We already talked about London. You can be patient with him if you want to, but let's take a guess on this. How many times this year will the Falcons throw 31 or more passes in a game?
7.
Okay. Those are going to be the games where you'll feel okay starting London as a number 3 receiver.
Everybody's freaking out about Pitts, too. He had a pretty bad game. He had 1 long catch.
Everybody did. They threw the ball 18 times.
I think, though, and I'll have to, I don't have I'll know all this stuff on Monday. Dave's got it all at his fingertips right now. I'm watching the Giants. I'm laughing at him. They felt like Carolina really did a good job of dominating the ball in this game. I would assume that Carolina did, or that Atlanta didn't run very many plays.
34 minutes for Carolina, 25 minutes for Atlanta. I can do the math on the plays if you want.
It's all right. It's all right. Let's go to Rachaad White. He was a loser. So is Jamal Williams. A couple running backs who had similar stat lines. Rachaad White, 17 carries for 40 yards, 2 catches for 10 yards at Minnesota. Jamal Williams, 18 carries for 45 yards, 2 catches for 7 yards against Tennessee. How are you feeling about them, Dave?
Yeah, they weren't quite as bad as Cam Akers, but they were in the same ballpark. And I wonder how much longer Rachaad White has as the main back, that volume running back that we talked about with him. And not that Sean Tucker was great either. His first run was nice. He only averaged 3 yards per carry, but this team's got to get a run game going. Otherwise, Baker's going to implode on them. I'd like to see what they do moving forward. And I wonder if it'll be more of a split next week with Tucker and Rachaad White. I also think if you've got Rachaad White, you should stash Tucker. I think that's just a must to get. White did play 79% of the snaps, 16 of 18 snaps on 3rd and 4th down, all 3 of their snaps inside the 10. He just looked miserable. I wonder if Jamal Williams will be droppable after week 3, because week 4, we know that Alvin Kamara is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, in his defense, in Jamal Williams' defense, the Titans were arguably the best run defense in football last year. And I think it's been 2 years in a row they've been top 3 in fantasy points allowed to running backs, among the 3 best. So
would you agree that next week is the Joe Boo week for Jamal Williams?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not going to start him once Kamara comes back, so you got to hope.
Well, right. He's playing at Carolina. Carolina just allowed Tyler Algier to look like what we thought Bijan Robinson would be. And they allowed Bijan Robinson to look like what we thought Bijan Robinson would be. So it should be a good matchup for Jamal Williams. You can go to him again next week, but if he doesn't do well next week, you're drop kicking him to the waiver wire. It's Joe Boo time.
Okay. Heath's losers are Damian Pierce, who had 13 touches, 47 total yards, a bad game at Baltimore. Christian Kirk, who we already talked about, 1 catch on 3 targets, and Cam Akers, who we also already talked about. So Damian Pierce, Heath.
This was really, and it was a bad game script, but I thought Damian Pierce was going to catch some more passes this year. I thought, like, if he's going to just completely disappear from the game plan whenever they're down 2 scores, he's only going to play about 50% of the snaps this year, I'm afraid, because they're going to be down 2 scores a lot. I was very discouraged. I don't know what the breakdown was of what time Mike Boone was in, but it was way too much. And that game was not far enough apart. I mean, I know that he played 31% of the snaps, but was that all after the game was not competitive?
He had 9 snaps in the 4th quarter, 13 of 22 Texans snaps on 3rd and 4th down. He mattered a lot more than anybody thought he would.
What we used to say for Dave, the quicker, slicker, looker upper.
Well, I'm actually using Dave's Twitter thread of snap percentages so that I could say what the snap percentage was for Boone. So he's an official statistics source now.
Yeah, okay.
My data source is Dave Richards' Twitter.
Nice.
All right, well, let's see if the Colts run defense, again, they were pretty damn good until that ETN touchdown run at the end. That's Damian Pierce's next opponent, and hopefully a better game script for him, as they lost 25-9 to the Ravens, and they had the ball. And the time of possession was actually pretty even. So how about a bonus loser, Dallas Goedert? The Eagles offense actually wasn't very good in this game. They had a pick 6 against them. They were at New England, and Dallas Goedert had 1 target and no catches. It's basically just Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and a little bit of Gainwell, I guess. But who's concerned about Dallas Goedert?
Like Lamar and Fields and Burrow, I don't think I'm adjusting my ranking of them 1 iota next week based on this week.
Okay. Career days. This segment probably should have been a lot longer, but I ran out of time. But we had Joe Burrow throwing for the fewest yards of his career, 82 yards. His previous low was 148 yards. Travis Etienne, I think, had 5 catches today. His previous career high was 3, so career day for him. And Austin Eckler had the longest run of his career. He had a 55-yard scamper.
Got caught from behind, though.
Well, loser. It was a great game. 36-34. The Dolphins with the win. They got some key sacks at the end of the game. Yeah, big win for the Dolphins on the road. Some more news. Defensive injuries, basically. Well, first of all, I don't know how Tennessee was not rewarded with a fumble recovery for a touchdown on that Derek Carr play. I mean, that was such a clear fumble.
Yep.
And they called it incomplete, and then they reviewed it, and they kept it incomplete. I don't get that.
Refs don't determine games, but the refs cost the Titans that game. There were multiple instances of terrible officiating against the Titans.
J.C. Horn, Carolina cornerback, he left in the second quarter. The guy cannot stay healthy. I don't know if he came back. I hope he did. Marcus Williams, Baltimore safety, he left in the second quarter with a shoulder injury. That's a couple of secondary injuries now for the Ravens, and they have the Bengals next week. Tennessee cornerback Christian Fulton left in the second quarter. Do we know did Quentin Nelson come back into the game? He left with a toe injury.
I believe he did.
I think you're right. But Cleveland right tackle Jack Conklin was carted off with a knee injury. So
he did not come back.
Could be bad.
How about Brandon Scherf for the Jaguars? Got carted off and came back.
That was my next note.
That's a tough dude.
Minnesota left tackle Garrett Bradbury left in the second quarter. And there were some other things too. Anything from the goal line? Any goal line stuff that was interesting? Raheem
we can get to it as we go along with the games. I've got it all with their running backs.
Keenan Allen had an almost touchdown. It was ruled a touchdown and then overruled.
Yeah, and that ended up being a Donald Parham touchdown catch 2 plays later.
That's good for everybody that started Donald Parham.
Zach Ertz had a lot of targets, and he was wide open for a touchdown, and he was overthrown on that. So he probably
that's not going to change in the next 2 months.
No, but if he caught that touchdown, I guarantee his waiver wire appeal would be a lot higher, just because the stats would be a lot better. Deontay Johnson should have had a touchdown. Kenny Pickett was so bad he missed him on that play. Mike Evans dropped, which should have been a catch and run for a touchdown that would have been his second. There were some others. All right, let's go to the games. Atlanta 20. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll go to the games. Atlanta and Carolina will be our first one, and we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. The Falcons 24, the Panthers 10. Anything other than the running back? We talked, I think, extensively about Atlanta here. What do we want to say about Carolina? Or do we have a believe it or not, Heath, about Carolina?
Well, I'm not writing believe it or not this year, but I could still do believe it or not for the podcast if you want to.
Podcast exclusive, baby.
Podcast exclusive. Believe it. No, I think believe it or not, the Panthers offense is going to be so running back heavy that Miles Sanders can be good, even though he shared way too much with Chuba Hubbard. Like, I think that and you can frame this however you want, but it was a really bad news day for Sanders in terms of Hubbard was really involved early and often, but they ran their offense like the Lions of last year to where there were so many running back touches it didn't matter.
Man, but believe it or not, you shouldn't be disappointed. You shouldn't be disappointed if you're the Miles Sanders manager. Okay, I know he had the fumble, but he had 22 touches and 98 total yards. That's
6 targets.
Good. Yeah, like you should be happy. Are we all?
I believe that
page there.
I believe it. He played 58% of the snaps, both of the Panthers snaps inside the 10. Where Chuba really dominated was on 3rd and 4th down. So all the talk about Sanders being a 3-down back, they didn't let him really do that in this game. 12 of 16 3rd and 4th downs went to Chuba Hubbard.
It was kind of like the Mixon situation because Hubbard played at what, 12 of 16, you said?
12 of 16 on 3rd and 4th down.
And had 2 targets compared to 6 for Sanders.
Yeah.
All right, real quick, guys. Adam Thielen is 70% rostered. I know he came into this game with an injury. He had a nothing game. Easy to drop, Adam Thielen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
San Francisco 30 and Pittsburgh 7. What do we got, Heath?
Believe it or not, you should probably just sit everybody against the 49ers.
Checks to see who the 49ers
they were.
It's the Rams.
Dominant.
They were.
It's an easy one. Yeah, they look great. And goodness, this just doesn't sound right to say, but it felt like the Steelers were really unprepared, especially on offense. It took them forever to get anything going.
Well, believe it or not, the Steelers offense should be forgiven for this performance because they played the 49ers.
So file it away I don't think you should just ignore it. But I'm not benching anybody on the Steelers next week specifically because of this game.
Are we going to make excuses for them when they get shellacked by the Browns next week? Because after that, the schedule looks pretty good for Pittsburgh.
I think that's an excellent test case. I would be 0% surprised if Pittsburgh beats Cleveland by 2 scores next week.
And then after that, it's Las Vegas and Houston on the road. Then they get Baltimore, then a bye. Then they're at the Rams. Are the Rams really this good? Then they get the Jaguars, Titans after that. I'm not ready to judge the Steelers off of this one game. And I'm looking to see if I can get those man zone splits for you, Heath, because I'm curious about that too.
Well, I will say this was another game I had on. I had Red Zone on, and I had 2 games streaming, and it was the Browns-Bengals, and it was the Niners-Steelers. You can credit the Niners all you want, but Kenny Pickett was awful. He missed easy throws and nothing like what we saw in the preseason. So that was really disappointing. Any thoughts on Najee Harris? Any thoughts on Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren? Najee, 77% started. He had 8 touches in this game. Warren had also 8 touches. They both were terrible. Najee had a 24-yard run. But any thoughts?
Warren had more fantasy points than PPR.
Wow.
Both flexes next week. Still Harris over Warren for me.
I'm going to agree with that. Najee played 52% of the snaps. Warren played 39% of the snaps. Anthony McFarland played 8% of the snaps. However, half of the 3rd and 4th down snaps, there were 18 of them for Pittsburgh. Those went to Warren. They were inside the 10 for 3 snaps. Warren was in on 2 of the 3.
Now, I do think that this game script specifically, if you were going to lay out all the different game scripts, this one would have favored Warren more than most. So if next week's 17-14 game, I would expect Harris to play more snaps and Warren to play fewer.
Okay, let's go to Washington.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
I'm not ready to leave the Jaylen Warren station yet. And people are going to drop him in your leagues after 1 week if they picked him up. If you can stash him, I recommend stashing him.
Did you guys think it was weird that Cincinnati benched Burrow and the offensive starters with like 4 minutes left?
They didn't bench the offensive starters. They benched just Burrow.
Chase and Higgins were both out there?
Well, Chase certainly was. I mean, it was just like benching Burrow. I don't know. I don't really think it's a big deal. But yeah,
they were getting their butts kicked. He has a bad calf.
I have a hard time imagining like Allen or Mahomes sitting in that situation.
Maybe it was the injury. Who knows?
Could be.
But you know what? Burrow and Mahomes have the same record right now.
They do.
Yeah, they do. Okay. Bad start for George Kittle. 3 catches for 19 yards. He did have 6 targets. Washington 20, Arizona 16. What do we got?
Ugh. Believe it or not, Brian Robinson's a feature back.
No, I don't believe that.
Why not? I thought that was I was going to say we have potentially a true winner here. Gibson had 4 touches. Robinson had 20.
Robinson played 58% of the snaps. He did have 2 of 4 inside the 10. Gibson 37%, 8 of 13 on 3rd and 4th downs. They're not going to play against Arizona every week.
Well, that's not the point though. It's the touch distribution here, 20-4. What do you make of that?
Well, Gibson fumbled, correct? I'm not sure how many times he touched the ball after he fumbled, or is that?
I don't know if he fumbled. I didn't see that.
He did.
I know Howell fumbled. Okay.
He did. I can get you that number.
Like it wasn't more than 3.
Right. But if he didn't touch the ball or play many snaps after he fumbled it, then who knows what'll happen next week? I mean, do the Commanders just lose patience with Gibson? He's had a fumbling issue throughout his whole career. Do they just say, all right, that's it? It's going to be Brian Robinson's show? Or are they going to say, all right, bad game for you, Antonio Gibson, back to the drawing board next week?
I was encouraged by Robinson, and I'm I don't know if he's quite a feature back, but I'm definitely more interested in him than I was.
Obviously you have to call it a disappointing day for Dotson and McLaurin. Dotson with 5 catches for 40 yards. And Howell scored 17 points. Wasn't bad. Wasn't great. But we were expecting more. But Curtis Samuel was annoying in this.
Yep. It was bad performance by the Commanders in general. Howell saved his day, ironically, with a rushing touchdown, even though he didn't really run most of the game. But, yeah.
Gibson had one touch after his fumble. It was a 10-yard catch.
Drop or stash Marquise Brown, given this mid-season timetable for Kyler Murray?
Stash.
Okay. Cleveland 24, Cincinnati 3.
There's absolutely nothing I'm going to believe it or not on the Bengals. So, believe it or not, Elijah Moore is going to match Amari Cooper in targets this season. Both had 7 in week 1. There was some little whispers that Elijah Moore might be the actual number 1 wide receiver for the Browns this year.
I don't believe it. I believe that Cooper left the game for a little bit. I'm checking to see if that really matters.
Yeah, he did.
Elijah played 5 more snaps.
The right answer was Elijah will be the wide receiver 1 on the road and Cooper will be the wide receiver 1 at home.
Oh, stop.
They are clearly committed, though, to getting Elijah Moore the ball. He had 2 carries for 19 yards in addition to 3 catches for 43 yards. I guess they spread it around a little bit. How many? Watson had only 29 pass attempts.
Yeah. And as we talked about, it was not even close to a good game for Watson. He looked like 2022 Watson, which is what we're trying to not see. We want to see him go back to like 2019 Watson, 2020 Watson.
So just to throw it out there, we have no long-term concerns about the Bengals.
I have none.
No.
Very clever, Schaefer. Browns cage Bengals 24-3. All right, I like it. Let's see what you've got for Baltimore and Houston. Let's see. Ravens. What can we do? Fear the Raven. I don't know. Baltimore 25, Houston 9. What do we got?
Believe it or not, there will not be a consistent fantasy starter on the Texans.
Oh, I don't want to believe that yet. On 2 fronts, not just Dameon Pierce, who I think it was like 48% of the snaps, and I think that matches or comes close to what he had in week 1 last year. 49% week 1 of 2023. I don't have what he had in week 1 last year, but it wasn't a lot. Remember, he barely played. 29%. How about this? This was his 2nd lowest snap share in his career for Pierce.
So
get Mike Boone out of there and let Pierce get some of that work. I don't know if this was really a good bellwether game for Pierce. It was a tough run defense.
I guess Nico had 14 points.
Yeah, he had a good game.
Yeah, I think he's going to be flex worthy. He's absolutely bench worthy. In PPR, I think he's going to matter. Even in non-PPR, he's not terrible.
Well, I didn't say that nobody would matter. I said they would not have a consistent fantasy starter.
I think Collins and Pierce can be consistent for what they are, which is
no, denied. Consistent for what they are.
No, a number 2 running back is Pierce, and a number 3 running back or a flex for Nico Collins.
Receiver, yeah. All right. Let's see. What do we have on the other end? Does anybody feel, I mean, man, until you start seeing Zay Flowers and some of the plays he's making, it's hard to describe. He is freaking electric.
Yes.
Fun.
I feel like we could have a star here. I mean, I'm not saying yes. I'm saying it's in the realm of possibility.
We had conversations about him back in March. Dan Schneier was on Zay Flowers. He knew that he was talented. I thought that he had some really great film and really great qualities. Absolutely outclassed everybody in this Ravens passing game. Lamar had some great throws too. Lamar had a couple of really nice throws today.
I thought Flowers and Addison both. Could be stars. Mm-hmm. What if Addison and Jefferson are just both stars?
So who do you like better rest of season right now, Flowers or Addison?
Still Addison.
Agreed.
Okay. I should probably address Isaiah Likely. You guys were pretty low on him. Good for you. Me, Jamie, and Chris were very high on Isaiah Likely. And he had 1 catch for 4 yards on 1 target. And hopefully we don't have to make this decision anymore, but I don't think anyone's going to start him next week.
I believe likely. I believe it was the first catch of the game. And I remember sitting there thinking, I was all wrong on Isaiah Likely. Oops, it looks like I was all right on him. But you never know how things will go from week to week. And hopefully Mark Andrews is back.
Jacksonville 31, Indianapolis 21.
Okay, so we hit Richardson, we hit Pittman. We believe it or not, Calvin Ridley's the top 5 wide receiver rest of season.
Top 5.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see why not. But all right, so he's not. We're not going to.
I'm not going to buy that.
Hill. So could he be wide? Yeah, he could be. He could certainly be.
I think 4 he could be easily.
We haven't seen Stephon Diggs play. We haven't seen Garrett Wilson play.
Quite a performance, though.
It was a great game. He played Indy. Indy's secondary, especially on the outside, was one that I thought would be pretty bad.
Are you going to add Zay Jones, 38% rostered?
I am not.
No.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Wow. Not ready for prime time, New York. Not ready for prime time. Man.
Can we just do all of our podcasts during Giants games from now on?
Jeez, man.
This is the best thing ever.
It's saving my furniture because I can't really react the way I want to. Tennessee.
How would you react?
Nah, I mean, look, whatever. I'm so happy about the Hurricanes. I really don't even care.
I know. Oh, they were fun.
Yeah. 2 DST touchdowns.
Great job by the chat tonight, though. They've been fantastic.
And Minnesota 17. And okay, yeah, Tampa Bay 20, Minnesota 17. We had 19 points from Mayfield. We had 20.5 from Cousins
with 4 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he threw for 343.
Cousins had 3 turnovers.
I thought he had 4.
1 interception and 2 fumbles.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought he had 4.
Okay,
with 3 turnovers.
What are we thinking about Godwin and Evans right now, guys?
Same as I felt about him a month ago, 2 weeks ago, a day ago. They're gonna be involved and have a huge concentration of targets in this offense. Baker's not great, but they're moving around and they're not asking Baker to make a bunch of deep throws. He made one to Evans that was nice. And I think that you were able to draft these guys as number 3 wide receivers. I think you can continue to do that with them.
Yeah, they're still number 3 wide receivers. I think if anybody sees Evans' stat line and thinks, "Oh, he's still Mike Evans," then I'd be selling.
Yeah, you could try.
This was the easiest matchup in fantasy last year, or at least one of the 2 or 3 easiest matchups. So
right.
Minnesota off to a bad start defensively.
Guess who they get next?
The Vikings get the Eagles. Yeah.
And look who the Bucks get next.
That's Thursday night, right? The Bucks
Thursday
get the Bears. And then they get the Eagles.
Yeah, right. So Tampa and Chicago. So I think we can feel pretty good about starting the Bucks receivers for that game. And then we get nervous for that week 3 matchup against Philadelphia.
Packers 38. Tell that to Kendrick Bourne. Packers 38.
All right.
Bears 20. What do we got here, Heath?
Believe it or not, the Packers offense is not going to miss a beat going from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love.
How much of this was the Bears defense?
Yeah, well, last year's Aaron Rodgers, I think Jordan Love could definitely be better than last year's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Bears had 1 sack in the game. Yannick Ngakoue got to Jordan Love. I thought Love had a pretty good game. I think the Bears offense had a really rotten game.
Dave, so you're not watching the game, right?
Which one? The Sunday night game?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, can I do some trivia? Daniel Jones has 7 dropbacks.
Okay.
7 dropbacks. How many? Well, actually, I think it's 8 because he had a scramble. 8 dropbacks. How many passing yards does he have?
Let's see. If he has 8 dropbacks with a scramble, 7. He's probably completed like.
Oh, just guess.
I'll say that he's got 15 yards. 15.
Are you thinking gross or net?
No, enough. We have to.
He's got 0 gross, negative 19 net.
Oh,
you've been watching the game. You think it's his fault? He's been on his ass the entire game. They're crushing him. Give me a break, loser. All right.
Oh my God.
Sorry. That was too harsh.
This was a window into the real life Adam Azer.
You know what I'm saying? Saving my furniture.
He's like Mr. Rogers on this show. But when you start talking about Daniel Jones, the knives come out.
He hasn't made a bad play yet. It's a defense.
He hasn't made a bad play
yet. It's all the Cowboys. It's all the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys.
I think the Cowboys defense is going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, no kidding. They're killing them. All right. Anyway, Green Bay 38, Chicago 20. How about? All right. Honestly, if Aaron Jones is playing,
well, he said after the game that he's okay.
Yeah. What the heck is the point with AJ Dillon? This is the same garbage from. He had 2 goal line carries. That was great. No, he had 2 carries inside the 10, and then Aaron Jones ran it in from the 1.
Right. Yep.
If he doesn't score, he's terrible.
Yeah.
And I think at least one of his catches came because he had 2 after the Aaron Jones injury. So, I mean, should we just be viewing AJ Dillon as touchdown or bust?
Or as a handcuff for Aaron Jones?
Yeah. Even worse.
I think that's right. I thought there might be more targets available even for Dillon because of the wide receiver injuries, and it didn't really happen. I think the idea that he's going to take anything from Aaron Jones should be like disappeared from everyone's mind, because
Aaron Jones is at the Cam Akers party.
13
carries, 19 yards.
The only thing I disagree with there, no, that's AJ Dillon is at the Cam Akers party, not Aaron Jones.
Sorry. That's what
I still think he's the goal line guy.
I don't know if he's the goal line guy anymore because he went 0 for 2, and then Aaron Jones came in and got the job done. Jones played 4 of 6 snaps inside the 10. He had the dominant on 3rd and 4th down, 9 of 13 on 3rd and 4th downs, 68% of the snaps, all of that before he got hurt in the 3rd quarter.
Dave, Dillon was not 0 for 2 at the goal line. He had a carry from like the 9, and then he had a carry from, I think, the 4, and then Jones came in. So
I'm sorry, from inside the 10, not the goal line. My mistake. Yes.
All right. If on the other side of the ball, DJ Moore, 2 for 25. I think he saw a pretty good amount of Jair Alexander in this game.
Ended up mattering quite a bit.
he was so frustrated.
Should his fantasy managers be frustrated?
Very much so.
There might be a freak out on DJ Moore in fantasy leagues.
Oh, I can't imagine what that would look like. I don't know how you could start him with confidence next week.
At Tampa? Yeah, it's hard.
New Orleans 16, Tennessee 15. I forgot about this from the 1 o'clock slate. If there was a veteran player who looked the worst today, it may have been Ryan Tannehill. My God, was he bad. But what do we have for this game?
Believe it or not, as long as he's healthy, Michael Thomas is the number 1 wide receiver for the Saints.
What? What? That's as bad as your Daniel Jones take.
I was just trying to think of something.
That's good. I mean, look, he had 8 targets. That's very good. But Olave had 10. He had 112 yards. I mean, you could say Michael Thomas, as long as he's healthy, is a must start as a flex.
Yeah, he's in that range for sure. And it's nice to see. I'm happy to see it. Hopefully he stays healthy. Olave got off to a very slow start in this game. And he left with an injury and came back.
Hopkins had 13 targets, 7 catches for 65 yards. That was okay. And Michael, would you start next week Michael Thomas at Carolina or DJ Moore against Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay?
I think Thomas.
Am I ready to make that move already after 1 game, 1 week? I think I'd lean toward Moore.
All right, Rams 30, Seattle 13. Rams had the ball for more than 39 minutes. And, how concerned are you in general about the Seahawks passing game with Geno Smith throwing for 112 yards against? Again, I mean, maybe we'll be wrong about this, but this secondary was supposed to be one of the worst in football. Metcalf had a touchdown, but Lockett had 10 yards. JSN had 13 yards. How concerned are you guys about the Seahawks passing game?
I'm not ready to say that it's going to be a flop. Lockett left with a concussion. After the game, Pete Carroll said that he's fine. JSN, his first game, 5 targets. I couldn't expect him to have a monster game right away. And I guess I have to say I didn't see enough of Geno, but what I did see was disappointing. Didn't seem like the Geno of last year. Didn't seem like the Geno of the preseason either. And the Rams just dominated playing time. It was really a tough spot for him to be in. One other thing that happened in this game, and I'd like to know maybe how Geno played before and after this happened. They lost their starting right tackle, Charles Cross, to an injury. And if he's out for a while, that makes a strength for the Seahawks a weakness now up front.
I'm not making any drastic changes to my view of the Seahawks from this game. Listen, we all still think Sean McVay is a pretty good coach. He had a long time to get ready for it. Let's see what both of these teams look like next week.
Hopefully, we get the track meet Seattle at Detroit next week. That would be nice. Las Vegas 17 and Denver 16.
Believe it or not, Jimmy G didn't look that bad.
He came around. He struggled early. So I guess I'll say that I believe you. I thought, believe it or not, Russell Wilson didn't look that bad.
I'm not so sure that Russell Wilson isn't a worse passer than Jimmy G right now. So I did not share that sentiment. I watched
started the game 16 of 17. And then he ended up 27 of 34. So
he threw they had two possessions where he just threw it to P. Ryan, and then he went out, and then Javonte came in and he threw it to Javonte. It was just dump out. I mean, it was the old Drew Brees offense, but they were picking up 3 yards at a time. I didn't see anything from Russell Wilson that I liked.
I didn't see anything from Russell Wilson that I hated, though. And I felt last year, every time you watched him, it was something you hated. So at the very least, I would say he looked better today, Russell Wilson did, than he did for most of last year. But it wasn't great. But I mean,
I'm also working on the assumption that the Raiders defense is terrible. So maybe they are better.
I'm working on the assumption that their front seven is better this year. They got to him twice. They sacked him twice. Their secondary is still a mess. Russ should have had a better game.
Okay, he scored 19 fantasy points, though, so you'll take that. Jimmy Garoppolo also scored 19 fantasy points. Devontae Adams, he saw a lot of Patrick Surtain, which did not matter last year, but it did matter a little bit today. 6 catches for 66 yards on 9 targets. Any concerns about Josh Jacobs? Only 48 yards on 19 carries and 2 catches.
No, I was pretty happy with his usage. I think he'll be good.
What was his snap share? 80%? Seems like last year.
I mean, we can't just ignore Jacoby Myers, right?
Is he okay? It looked bad.
He got hurt, right? But it did look bad. But is there something to this?
I think he's their number 2 receiver.
For sure.
And if people are going to tilt their coverage toward Devontae Adams, Garoppolo can make him pay. It looked like they were on the same page.
Got 2 games left here. The best game of the week. This is the game. And Miami 36 and the Chargers 34. Whew, amazing. Great game.
Tua is on pace for over 7,900 passing yards this season.
Believe it.
That is factually true. I don't believe it or not, we're not ever actually going to feel great about starting a Dolphins running back. Thank goodness Mostert got in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love it. Great game. Now it was, they threw so much. They threw 45 times. Maybe if they're not in a close, maybe if they're having a lead, like at New England next week, maybe they.
But what was that? It wasn't even a huge thing in Mostert's favor, was I think Ahmed got the first carry.
I don't know who had the first carry, but Mostert played 72% of the snaps.
That's not bad.
Slight majority on 3rd and 4th downs. They had 10 snaps inside the 10. Mostert played on all of them.
That's good.
He may have, there were 3 goal line opportunities, I think, like right by the 1-ish, and Tua fumbled one of them. Mostert ran one in, and Tua threw a touchdown to Craycraft. On the other side of the ball, Mike Williams left, came back. What was his snap share? Do I have to Azer stat this one?
I can look and see. I don't know if that necessarily matters, but he had 5 targets, 4 catches for 45 yards.
Right.
You want to know just how many snaps he played? I'll tell you.
Well, look, I mean, for him to have 45 yards in a game where the Chargers scored 34 points is a little disappointing. But they ran the ball a lot. 32 carries among Kelly and Eckler in this game.
58 snaps from Mike Williams. Way more than I thought he had.
Okay. Just knocked my computer on the floor, but that was not Giants related. So
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else from this game?
I think you can still feel good about Keenan Allen. If Mike Williams is fine, you'll feel good about him. Gerald Everett didn't come through. You'll probably cut him. Eckler hopefully is okay. Herbert. We should talk about Justin Herbert.
Okay.
Who, if not for a rushing touchdown, really bad game. As it stands, not what we were expecting or hoping for from him.
There were a lot more rush attempts in this game than a 2022
Yeah.
Chargers game.
Yeah, how do we not talk about Joshua Kelly getting as many carries as Austin Eckler? And he did great with them.
Yeah, well, we kind of did earlier because Eckler left. Well, we don't know what happened, but Kelly played a lot down the stretch, and Eckler was out late in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it was.
I wonder if they are going to start to lean into those two as a duo, and that could limit Herbert from being this pass-happy quarterback that we were kind of counting on.
Look, it wasn't a great week for the top 8. Right, Mahomes. We haven't seen Allen yet.
Right. Hurts was bad.
Hurts
was miserable.
Fields, Burrow, Lawrence was fine, and
Richardson was good.
Richardson was good, and Tua was amazing.
We're talking about the top 8.
People were afraid to take.
Well, Herbert actually outscored almost all of it. Actually, I think Herbert may have been. No, I think Mahomes barely beat him, but Herbert was like basically tied with Mahomes and Fields. No, not Fields. Lawrence. Anyway, are you downgrading any of them or just whatever week 1?
Whatever week 1. Herbert's. I agree with Dave. A little bit more pause on Herbert just because last year wasn't very good.
Right.
Philadelphia 25, New England 20.
You want to have pause on somebody? I think Jalen Hurts looked terrible.
Weather? Can we chalk it up to the
weather?
weather?
Maybe it was the weather.
Well, Belichick. Like, that's kind of what I thought with Goddard is how many tight ends are good against the Patriots.
Yeah. But when you go into a game against the Eagles, is taking away Dallas Goedert really your primary goal?
I think they just take away all tight ends. It's just by the nature of their defense. And we talked about this last week, Adam, about people saying the Patriots were going to have a great defense, and maybe they looked pretty great.
Yeah, I wasn't convinced really because their secondary I thought would be a little weak, and then they put Jack Jones on IR. But they did look really good. And yeah, 7 of those points came on defense for the Eagles. Darius Slay, what was it, like a 70-yard interception return for a touchdown? So, yeah. What are your thoughts on Ramondre Stevenson? He had 12 carries for 25 yards, but he did have 6 catches for 64.
Oh, man. You got bailed out big time by Stevenson because a lot of those catches came in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
You'll be happy with his stats for his snaps. 74% of the snaps. 14 of 14 snaps on 3rd and 4th down, and both of the Patriots snaps inside the 10 Ramondre was on the field for. In PPR, you got bailed out by him. I thought he was still worth starting in PPR, and non-PPR, he gave you almost 9 fantasy points. I guess that's not so bad for Ramondre. And better matchups are coming.
Does Kendrick Bourne matter?
I think he might. How about Juju? Only 33 yards on 4 catches. Here's a question. Mac Jones threw the ball 54 times. How often is that going to be the case?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. Tony Romo did say something like Kendrick Bourne, if they found their number 1 receiver or something like that. But I don't know. It's really hard to it's funny. I did not put Mac Jones's stats in the notes. It is like the only player. 54 pass attempts. That must have been the last game I did. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not looking to pick up Kendrick Bourne personally. Are you?
Not yet.
I'd rather pick up Puka Nacua.
I would too.
Okay. Well, that is it for today's show. A nice, brief hour and 9-minute show. That is pretty good for all the game for 14 games.
Should we ask the chat who they're worried about?
Tomorrow night on the live stream. Come for the fun and tell us who you're worried about. 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We will be previewing Monday Night Football, but really just answering all your questions. You can tell us who you are worried about. And we will be back with Beyond the Box Score Monday morning at 11:30 a.m. ish Eastern time. Until then, see you later, everybody.